Earlier this week, the Texans' preseason schedule came out, and everybody was excited. No. Preseason sucks, if we're being honest. I mean, the first game, yeah, it's exciting, football is back. But then the second game comes around, you're a little excited, but by the time you get to, the second quarter of the second game, you're like, man, preseason sucks. Let's just get on to the regular season. The third game is, the little dress rehearsal where starters play a whole half. And the fourth game is just complete garbage. I understand preseason guys are trying to make the team and all that good stuff, but I just think preseason should be reduced to 2 games. It's a complete waste of time. It's boring, a snooze fest, and all that stuff. But regardless, preseason is a part of football. It's a part of Texan football, so we kind of have to talk about it. Now, the first game, we travel to Green Bay to take on the Green Bay Packers. See, I don't really care about the game because in preseason, at least for the first, second, and fourth game, it's all vanilla offense and defense. They're not even trying. It's just, going at 10%, walking through the things, honestly. But what really matters to me about that first preseason game is the Texans have joint practices with Green Bay in Green Bay. So I think that's huge. Not just for the Texans, but for one guy in particular on the Texans, Deshaun Watson. Why? He gets to watch Aaron Rodgers up close. He gets to talk to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers can give him a few tips. Aaron Rodgers, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, if not the best. And I think that's great for Deshaun Watson because if you recall back to 2017, I think it was one of those mic'd up moments. They caught Bill O'Brien talking to, I believe it was Wes Welker. He was talking to him, and they were talking about Deshaun Watson, and Bill O'Brien said, I show him a lot of Aaron Rodgers, talking about Watson. I show him a lot of Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying he's Aaron Rodgers, but, he's showing him some Aaron Rodgers. So what better way to further elevate Deshaun Watson's game than to show him some Aaron Rodgers? And if you really look at Aaron Rodgers' game and Deshaun Watson's game, they are very similar. Now, one of the things that pisses me off the most about Deshaun Watson is when he holds on to the ball way too long and, gets sacked or, something bad happens. Well, if you watch Aaron Rodgers, Rodgers is the same way. The dude will hold on to the ball, escape the pocket, and look for a big play every now and then. The difference between Deshaun and Aaron is Aaron knows when to, dump it off, when to get rid of it, when the play is actually over. Deshaun still hasn't gotten to that point yet. And, perhaps spending a few days with Aaron Rodgers, maybe Aaron Rodgers can teach Deshaun Watson when to get rid of the ball, when's the right time, when can you scramble out of the pocket and hold on to the ball, when can't you? Because one of the things about Aaron Rodgers, you guys see, he avoids a few sacks and then throws up a ball and his receiver catches it. Who does that remind you of? Really? That is 100% Deshaun Watson. Take it back to the Eagles game. Deshaun Watson avoided 3 or 4 guys, and then he throws a pass to, I believe it was Jordan Akins. And that's similar to what Aaron Rodgers does. Go back to that playoff game against the Cowboys a few years ago where Aaron Rodgers kind of rolled out to the left, held onto the ball a little too long, and then threw a perfect pass to his tight end to set them up in field goal range. It was a perfect pass. The tight end barely got his feet in. What does that remind me of? When Deshaun Watson was playing the Eagles, and he threw a perfect pass to Vincent Smith, and Vincent Smith barely got it in the end zone. It was just a perfect pass. Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson are similar quarterbacks. It's what they are. They look for the big play. They make big plays. But Deshaun Watson just has to know when it's time to make big plays, when it's okay to run around to make plays. You know, you can't be doing that all game long. You do that during crunch time. And I think if Deshaun Watson learns that, if Aaron Rodgers can give him a few pointers, I think that'll be really good going forward for Deshaun Watson. And I'm pretty sure that Bill O'Brien, did this for a reason. I don't think it was just, some coincidence. I think he knew what he was doing, so they tried to set up the joint practices to really help out Deshaun. Now, I'm pretty sure some other players are going to get some help too by going up against a different team. But for the most part, I think there's more about Deshaun Watson getting to talk to one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. For example, I think it was a couple years ago, we played the Patriots in the preseason, and the Texans had joint practices with the Patriots. So I'm pretty sure Deshaun Watson got some pointers from Tom Brady, and now he's picking some up from Aaron Rodgers. So I think that'll be great for Deshaun Watson, and I'm pretty sure it'll be great for our secondary as well, because they get tested against one of the better quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, and Davante Adams is a pretty damn good receiver as well. So our secondary is gonna kind of practice against high-tier opponents. And one of the things I love about joint practices is that you can easily go read what the other team's media is saying about the Texans. Because if we're being honest, if you go read, what anyone on the Texans media is saying, it's most of the time biased. It's like, the Texans did good today in practice, blah, 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 and all that stuff. So, they always make the Texans look good. But say, we have a joint practice, you can go and read what they had to say about the practices, and then, everything, Like, for example, the Texans would say something like, Jonathan Joseph had an okay day. Not his best day, but it was okay. That's all they'll give you. But if you go read the Packers, you'll probably read something like this. Davante Adams kept torching Jonathan Joseph all day. Jonathan Joseph had no answers for Davante Adams. Davante Adams was just dominating all day on whoever he was on. The Texans had no answers for him. They'll say something like that. And that's why I really love joint practices. You'll be able to hear the truth on how the Texans did instead of the Houston media. I'm looking at you, John Harris, in particular. The Houston media just kind of sugarcoating everything and making the Texans look good. And I know I've rambled on a lot about just that one game, mostly the joint practices, but to me, that's the big takeaway from this preseason, the joint practices. That's all I really care about. That week 1 game against the Packers, the joint practice. Week 2 against Detroit and Houston, don't really care much for it. Starters don't play much, but 2-3 drives. I will say this, though. The week 3 game against the Cowboys, it's going to be a little bit interesting because the Cowboys do have a strong defensive line, so the Texans' O-line will be tested. The week 3 game, like I said earlier in the video, is that dress rehearsal game. Teams actually kind of game plan a little bit for the first half when the starters are in. And I think that's good for the Texans' O-line. They get some practice against DeMarcus Lawrence and some other good guys in that Dallas defensive front. We'll see if the run game can get going against a stout defensive front. They have a pretty good secondary as well. Let's see how Deshaun Watson does. Last year in the real game, Deshaun Watson torched the Cowboys, so there's that. The one thing I will say about this game that I'm disappointed about is our secondary really isn't going to be tested because it's the Cowboys. They don't really pass the ball much. Dak Prescott isn't really that gifted of a passer compared to the players or the quarterbacks that we're going to play this year. Dak Prescott would probably be in the bottom or near the bottom of that list. I mean, Andrew Luck, Nick Foles is probably better than Prescott as well. Brady, Mahomes, Rivers. You got Breeze, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton. You got, what's his name as well, Jameis Winston. I know that might sound as a joke, but with Bruce Arians behind Jameis Winston, I think Winston can be dangerous. So Prescott would be near the bottom of the list of quarterbacks we'd face in the regular season this upcoming year. So I don't think our secondary will really be tested by Dak Prescott. I mean, again, like I said, they don't throw the ball much. Dak Prescott isn't that gifted of a passer. So I'm kind of disappointed with our Week 3 matchup. I would have preferred, maybe playing the Packers Week 3 or the Rams who we play Week 4. But for the most part, it's just preseason, a small sample size. It isn't until like Week 3 or 4 that teams really start to get going in the NFL. So, I mean, yeah, I love the joint practices with Green Bay. Not too ecstatic about the Week 3 matchup, the dress rehearsal versus the Cowboys. And don't really care about the other 2 games against Detroit and the Rams. So, yeah, overall, those are my thoughts on the preseason schedule. Really not much to there. Most of it comes from that joint practice. And if we could get another joint practice, that'd be great. I'd absolutely love it because you get, more practice time with another team. And I think it'd be good for our team to practice against other players. But, it is what it is. If it's just Green Bay, I'd be fine with it, especially since, again, Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson. But, yeah, that's all I have for you guys for today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.